everybody. This is Stephanie Krupsak with the Purevant Living Podcast, Things You Should Know. With me today, I have Greg Stromberg, founder and CEO of Canned Water for Kids, just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thanks so much for being here today.
Well, Stephanie, this is a real opportunity to share our work, and thank you very much for your time today.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit more about your background running Canned Water for Kids and your interest in the environment and social responsibility.
Well, thank you. It all begins probably 12, 14 years ago when I was still working. I'm now retired. I work for a company called Inks International Ink Company, and I was director of marketing and sold ink to all the can makers in the world. I had a 47 successful career in the packaging industry, and at the time prior to my retirement, I was thinking about what could I do for my company, my industry, my family, my kids. What kind of legacy could I leave? Had great customers, and so I had an idea and learned a little bit about the problems that the world has with water, that every 15 seconds a child would die from a waterborne disease. And I thought, thinking about this, and also I got exposed to a summit in Chicago back in 2007, where they had a gentleman from the United Nations, a consultant on packaging, and it was a can maker summit, I think in October of that year. And he spoke to the CEOs of major can companies in the supply chain, and I happened to be there as part of a supplier. And he challenged all of us and said, what are you doing to help people in developing countries? Because their food spoils and their water gets contaminated. And I looked around the room and everybody kind of looked like deer in a headlight. No real answer to his question, but I took that question personally and had been thinking about it for a while, and talking to the owner of the Can Maker magazine, and told him that I wanted to do something around cans to give the can, which our ink went on, a higher purpose, and that was to use it as a billboard for a cause, to get clean water to people, but really to take Paul Newman's concept, which I always liked, Newman's own brands, and to sell that product in the marketplace, and then take the proceeds and put them towards something good, a common good. So the idea was born. I was able to get the CEO at Crown Cork and Seal to make up a pallet of cans for me. Had the water filled up in Cold Spring, Minnesota, and went out and tried to start selling the water with the idea that I would give that money back to get children clean water. Didn't know how I was going to do it, but started off with water. And then somebody heard about what I was doing, and a young lady who worked at Engineers Without Borders at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee came to my office and said, hey, I understand you're selling water in cans for the purpose of getting clean water to children. And she says, I work on several projects, and would you like to take on a project with the university? And I said, sure, I'd love to. I haven't sold a can yet, but I said, what do we need to do? She says, well, you can write me out a check for $10,000. Well, you can imagine it took my breath away, and I haven't sold a can yet, not even priced out a can of water. I said, sure, and wrote her out a check out of my personal checking. So the nonprofit started with a deficit of $10,000. Well, the good news is that we were able to sell those cans and sell more cans, and we were able to recover the money that we put in, and we were able to help the engineers who go down on their own time and money to the highlands of Guatemala, and they work on water projects, and that money went to several water projects that they were working on. So 12 years later, the nonprofit has been able to sell over 3.5 million cans of water. We've displaced that many plastic bottles. And if people don't know, cans are infinitely recyclable. They become new cans in 60 days. And they go right back into the packaging, unlike other things like plastic and glass. It's not that easy to recycle. Plus, there's not a demand for the container.
And I think you might have answered this previously too, but is there a specific experience that led you on the path that you're on today, or was it that conference that really kind of made you shift gears a bit?
Yeah, thank you. Early on, my dad would share with me my grandfather, who I never got to meet. I was still I think 6 months old when he passed away. But my grandfather graduated from Northwestern back in 1915, and he was a dentist. And my dad used to tell me stories about how he would fix people's teeth in the Depression, and people that had lots of pain, and he wouldn't charge them. And that always kind of stayed in my craw. And then I got exposed to people like Paul Newman, Newman's Own Brands, Jimmy Carter, some of the work that he did. And I just was inspired, along with the Can Maker Summit gentleman that spoke to us, that this is something that I needed to do. I was fortunate to have this 47-year successful career in the packaging industry, 3 healthy children, 9 healthy grandchildren. Having all that success and being blessed with healthy children, and knowing what was happening around the world, I felt I needed to do something. And so that was my inspiration.
That's really great. So your grandfather's story, kind of building off of his legacy, how he helped others. So what do you want people to learn and take away from your efforts with Can Water for Kids?
Well, like I've told Stephanie earlier in our conversation, I'm a student and a teacher, probably more a student than a teacher. So I'm always, like a little kid, curious, and I became very curious about water. And I think I'm still in kindergarten when it comes to learning about how precious our water is and how little we know about our water. And the 3 questions that I give everybody is, 1, do you know where the source of your water came from? Did it come from a river? Did it come from a lake, like Lake Michigan? Did it come from an aquifer? Did it come from the air? Where did it come from? I think it's important to know. The second question is, how did it get clean? Was it reverse osmosis? Did it just bubble up out of the ground and somebody put it in a container? Very important to know how your water is clean, because some of the processes strip the minerals out of the water, and then they add other minerals to give it taste. Not always the best in the world when people talk about what is healthy drinking water. The third question is, how did it get to you? And you would think that would be kind of a silly question to ask, right? Living in Milwaukee, or maybe Flint, the water travels from a filtration plant through pipes, which are over 100 plus years old, made from lead. They go to connectors, probably made from lead, depending on what part of the city you live in. And this is in 2,000 cities, by the way. The infrastructures have lead, and they contaminate the water along with the lead in the homes, in the older homes, because back then lead was not considered to be poisonous or unhealthy. So that last question is how did the water get to you, is very important. And if it came in a container, a big plastic jug, you want to know that too, because all of these questions have answers that tell you how healthy your water is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess we're fortunate today too to have a lot of products that do test the water or filter it even further. But yeah, that's really something to think about, how it gets to you. Yeah, and even how it's transported too, even the bottled or canned water. And I know, kind of talking earlier about how your work with Canned Water for Kids impacts the environment and society, and mentioning that 3.5 million cans, that's significant. That's that many less water bottles that are out in landfills right now, or maybe processing plants, but depending on how many actually end up there to be recycled. But kind of looking at maybe how it impacts society too.
Well, you know, we have too much abundance. We waste. We waste food. We waste resources. We're not good stewards of our air, our water. You know, plastic goes in landfills. Only 7% gets plastic water bottles get recycled. You know, by the Cokes and the Pepsis.
Low.
Yeah, that plastic breaks down. If it's in the ocean, it becomes soluble, and then it becomes part of the liquid that we all consume, that the animals consume. The water that's used in our food processing is mixed in there, and you know, the death rate in America, people were living longer, and they're not living as long as they used to. Now, some people talk about the stress, but I think stress, along with, you know, cancer-causing chemicals and other contaminants that get in our water and that aren't controlled properly, is a real problem. And I think our leadership is asleep at the switch. And the train wreck it's not a train wreck, it's the frog, I guess, in the boiling water, the slowly boiling water. We're slowly cooking and poisoning ourselves to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it kind of stems from manufacturers, because as consumers, we have what's available, right? If we're not living off the land, so to speak, we have to buy what we can to get by. So,
and I think that's where education becomes important. That, you know, we need to learn and understand answers to these three questions, and I think you should demand from our elected officials answers and transparency about what is going on with our food. As you know, E. coli I love fresh food, and I get lettuce, and you know, we're always reading about whether it's the meat, the hamburger, killing people because of E. coli or listeria or whatever. We need to be more careful and regulate and set higher standards, whether it's water, air, or food, you name it.
Yeah, it's all connected. In addition to your message to listeners on how they can impact the environment and society, you mentioned, like, ask yourself these three questions about where your water is coming from, how it's being sourced. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that for listeners? What action they can take?
Well, I think the important thing is you should know and have your water tested. And there are several places you can do it. You can do it through your states. A lot of states, you can send them samples of your water. We will have shortly on our website where you can send your water to have it tested, and that's CANNEDWATER4KIDS.org, and that's spelled CANNEDWATER, the numeral 4, and then KIDS.org. And I think it's important, whether you have a well or you're getting water through your city, municipality, it's important to know, are there any contaminants in your water? And water does change from season to season. So
that's interesting.
There are regulations for schools that they have to test the water every year. The government does post that. And there is a website also where you can put in your zip code. It'll be on our website too.
Okay.
That it will tell you what the recent analysis is that the EPA did on your water for where you live.
That sounds like a really helpful tool. I did not know of that one. So the EPA. Okay. Yeah, we'll have a link to that for listeners too. So that'd be great. I know we talked earlier about all the different initiatives and projects you're working on. What are some of them that you'd like to share that are kind of top of the list right now?
Well, the one thing that we think is important is to get children involved in learning about water. Water 101, we call it. And we're working on some ideas of helping kids learn more about water. We're partnering with a couple of local city schools and Cardinal Stritch University, and we may see Marquette University involved, but we'd like to get all the universities involved and to help kids learn a little bit about what is water and possibly looking at the democratization of water. And there'll be more to come about what we'll be doing with all the schools in the nation with children with our water, and to make sure that they can answer those three questions or know where they can get the information on those three questions, because after all, they are our future and our future leadership. So we need to do what's right for everybody.
That sounds really great. I know that you can't share all of the details yet, so that'll be coming soon. But yeah, very excited to learn more about that.
Thank you.
And you mentioned working with a local university, Cardinal Stritch, before too, with some of their classes. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, we participated in a mission fuel project, which was I guess you could say an entrepreneurial course for nonprofits. Nonprofits operate just like regular businesses. They have the same challenges. They have customers. They have cash flow. They have to think about sustainability. They need to hold on and retain their best customers. They need to create new value and innovation and look for new markets so they can sustain themselves. And they need to hire and find good people that share their vision, their purpose, and their core values.
That's really great. And I know we talked earlier too about your project in Kenya with CANNEDWATER4KIDS.
Yeah, this is an interesting project. We work with a company called Stonehouse Water Technologies in Milwaukee, part of the Water Council, a startup company that they helped move forward. And so we were one of the first to purchase what they call a pod system. It is a new way of cleaning water, unlike RO, reverse osmosis, that pushes the water through filters, and in order to make 1 good gallon of water, you waste about 4 gallons of water to have one clean. So you're literally stripping out all the minerals out of the water and taking out all the other bad things, E. coli and whatnot. But their system, and I should say RO uses a lot of energy. It's energy intensive and it wastes water. Their system does not waste water. You don't take the minerals out. It takes out all the other bad things, lead and viral, like E. coli and whatnot, and gives you water with less energy use that is as good as when it started. So they literally have taken water out of the Milwaukee River, put it through their system, and it was better than probably the water in the middle of Lake Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So we purchased one of those pods for a hospital and school in Kenya, Africa, and we hope to generate some more funds for that project, because not only are they helping the school and the hospital, but they have a whole village of people that need clean water, and right now they're taking it out of the lake. And we were told a very sad story that these poor kids that go down to get the water, many times get eaten by the crocodiles.
Oh my gosh.
So not only is the water killing them, but the animals are looking at them as prey.
Oh wow, that's very sad story. That's great that you have one of the pods there. And I think I was at an event at the Water Council where they did have that on display, actually, that company. So it's really interesting. And I think a lot of people probably don't know this. I mean, reverse osmosis, a lot of people seem to be in favor of, but if it strips all the good minerals out and it takes so much to process it, then it's actually not as great as we think it is. Because I know a lot of people can get that installed right to their water system in their home, to their faucet. So that's really good information to know.
Yes, and it was born right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and thanks to all the universities. I think Wisconsin has a freshwater school, and Marquette has a president along with UWM, and then Madison and MSOE. I think everybody is contributing, and this is the water hub for the world.
Yeah, and we have some of the biggest fresh bodies of water right here. So what better place to have it right here in the Midwest. I know you mentioned earlier, too, your work with Engineers Without Borders. You want to talk about the project in Guatemala?
Yeah, what we do is we give the students money that we've been able to generate through the sale of our product. And I will also like to clarify that is we don't ship water overseas. We have when the Red Cross or Second Harvest of Japan came for the tsunami, or Portalite for Haiti after the earthquake. We did ship water, but our water all stays in North America, and we sell the water and then take all the proceeds. 95 cents of every dollar goes for a water project. So we give this money from the sale of our cans to the students, not for the travel. They go on their own time and money to travel there, but for the supplies, and then they build purification modules, because the water comes from the mountain streams, and it's all very polluted, but they've been able to take that water, make it clean, put in piping for the villages, and then people have running water. Now, the other thing that we believe in is sustainability. We don't think you should just give anybody money. You want to teach them how to fish, right? You want them to sustain that water, that clean water. So the Engineers Without Borders teach like a villager who becomes the water manager for that village.
Okay.
And the people work on the project, so they know how the pipes work and how they go together. So the engineers are very good at doing that.
Mm-hmm. That's really great. And I think that's amazing how you're partnering with all these different organizations and universities in the area for any freshwater project. So that's very amazing. And that you give 95% of proceeds. Like, that's huge. I feel like a lot of organizations maybe give 50, 60%, but that's a very significant percentage. So want to applaud you for that too.
Thank you.
So what does social responsibility mean to you? Kind of a vague question, but
well, not everybody is fortunate to have abundance, like myself or other people. There are people, as you learn, especially with the water problems, that don't have access to technology or resources. So they're not only drinking bad water, they're becoming unhealthy and not living like we live. So to me, understanding and serving those who are in most need is what I would say in answer to your question. That's what I believe is what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And kind of touching upon what you mentioned earlier, that, when you think of, freshwater projects, you might think of, third world countries, but it's also an issue here in Milwaukee, in Flint, Michigan, where, some individuals that maybe live in older homes, the older piping and the lead, that it's right here in our backyard too happening. So that it's everywhere.
Yeah, we've poisoned a lot of children in Flint, in Milwaukee, and in 2,000 other cities. And that's why we need the answers to the 3 questions, and we need to hold the people that are responsible accountable for our well-being and safety. After all, the leadership, and I think the word leadership with moral courage is used today. It is extremely expensive to replace an infrastructure. Flint, Michigan is still not fixed. People are still don't have access. The kids, I'm sure, are still drinking bad water. And I'm sure that holds true for Milwaukee. Special zip codes still have issues, older homes. The moral courage is in doing the right thing and spending the money. People are too worried about their money. We spend the money on the wrong things. And if it was my child and I found out that they were drinking that bad water, I'm not sure it would be beyond emotional, I think. It's not right, and we need to change it.
And just bringing awareness, what you mentioned earlier, that you're going to have resources on your website where you can enter your zip code if you might be in an area that you should really get your water tested. But everybody really should. I mean, whether you have your own well or you are consuming city water. And, you can buy water filters for $20. Like Zero Water is one I'm using, where it has a little testing thing where I actually tested my tap water. Mm-hmm. It had 165 parts per million of these other particles, which is a lot. My old filter took out 10. That's it, 155. And then I tested it with this new filter, 0. It's very interesting. There's very small steps you can take that can help. But definitely to get your water tested.
Yeah, be aware. And as we've all found out with the coronavirus, that not all testing kits are the same.
Yes.
So, we need standardization. We need regulation. We need testing on the regulation, and
by a third party.
By a third independent party, of course. And then we need transparency.
Yeah, definitely. So, together we can take the steps. So, and again, we'll post the resources so everybody can access that. So kind of back to some of the initiatives you're working on. Is there anything else you want to share? Or do we cover most of the current projects?
Well, one of the things we're working on is, the everything drinking water. We'd like to be a resource to the world on education and problem solving and shared learning. And today's technology, allows us to do that. The world is flat, and with open source problem solving, anybody can help contribute, just like the Linux software where they write code, right? Most of our computers run on the code written freely by computer people for bragging rights. So, our vision is to also, and it's part of our charter as a nonprofit, is to continue to educate, especially children, about what is, clean, safe, healthy drinking water. So they'll be smarter and maybe help solve those problems for the future.
Definitely. Then they can go home and share it with their families and kind of be that, voice of reason from a small individual to teach them young. And so kind of a fun question here. So what is your personal mantra or theme song that kind of gets you back to a good state of mind or redirects your mindset to a good place?
I'm not really a music person, but I think that one of my friends taught me value given for value received, but it's really about giving more value than you receive, and being service to those in most need. And to me, I define success by making sure all those children in the world will have access to clean, safe drinking water, and no kid will ever die because of a waterborne disease. So if I have to sum it up, it's service to others, especially those in most need.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. Service to
Thank
others. So are there any books you'd like to share? I know we talked about a couple earlier. You had some good ones I'd like to share with listeners. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, I think was one of them.
Well, yeah. Probably one that I think could be used everywhere is Rewards and Punishments by Elfie Kohn.
Okay.
When you look at what drives processes and systems, whether it's political, business, nonprofits, whatever, the book he wrote talks about how manipulative money can be when it's used as a reward system, and it's short-lived, and people wind up working for the money, not for the purpose. So I think the takeaway there is that we want to create environments where people can be intrinsically motivated, and that's where I think you get more value and more passion and more potential from your teams and your employees.
I definitely agree with that.
Thank you.
So how can listeners reach you?
Best way is through our website, CANNEDWATER4KIDS.org. You can call me if you'd like. Always hesitant to give out my phone number, especially today with all the robocalls and the threats that I get from the IRS.
We'll leave it to your email, maybe.
But you can reach me at Greg, Greg, at CANNEDWATER4KIDS.org, and that's spelled CANNEDWATER, the numeral 4, and then KIDS.org.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, sharing all about your initiatives, Can Water for Kids. So, again, thank you again so much for sharing, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for what you do.